Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Next Gen Planners podcast. My name is Dan, and I'm the head of community experience here at Next Gen Planners. And today, I am delighted to be joined by Florida, all the way from Florida, by Mr. Andrew Marsham from Andrew Marsham Fitness. How are you doing today, Andrew?
Doing very well, Dan. Thanks. How are you?
I'm not as good as you are because it's absolutely chucking down with rain here in the UK, and I'm feeling very jealous of where you are in the world right now. But never mind, we'll brush over that. But I'm good, thank you, man. It's nice to have you on the show. It's brilliant to have you on the show, actually, to talk about something which we never really do cover. We've never really covered in the past, so it'll be an interesting one today. So for anyone who doesn't know Andrew, he is the CEO of Andrew Marsham Fitness, and he helps time-poor 9 till 5ers lose weight in just 4 hours a week. Now, that I think can imagine that's why this is going to resonate with so many people in the audience, because I think I've probably just described a massive amount of people in the audience there. We're all struggling with time and everything, aren't we? So, but to kick things off, can you just tell us a little bit about what it is that you get up to on a daily basis?
So it depends where I am in the world. That's the first part. So I'll talk through. I mean, obviously, I live in Scotland, and that's where I spend the vast majority of my time. But typical day in the life for me is I will typically get up at 5 a.m. I run my own business, as I said. I previously done it on the side, and I was working with 9 to 5 and things as well. So time was always a pressure. But at the moment, I get up at 5 a.m. I typically work from 5 until 9 a.m. roughly, and generally don't really have anything to eat up until maybe around 8:30, 9 p.m. Generally, once I'm kind of done with that initial first work, I'll get something to eat, go walk, and then I'll head to the gym maybe around 9:30. That takes me maybe an hour and a half max out my day, and then I'm back 11 a.m. I hop on calls with my team 11:30, and then from there again it's typically just Zoom consultations or working at the computer, working at laptop, specific project, whatever it is that's relevant at the time, up until about 5, 6, maybe even 7 p.m. Again, it depends on the day, but that's a typical framework. Sprinkled in there will be some afternoon walks in between calls, things like that. And then in the evenings, I will try and do a bit of maybe some unwinding, go a walk again, typically just get outside and finish my night with a little routine, maybe last 30 to 60 minutes, read a book and go to sleep, and rinse and repeat that process most of the time.
I love asking that question because there's a real mix of people who kind of describe it at an operational level. And then there's a people who describe it on literally kind of like a day in the life level. And you've just done that. And it's lovely to get that's why I asked that question, is, in case anyone's wondering, is because you really do get an insight into the guests' lives. And it's fantastic to hear all that kind of stuff. And something I get out of that is how active you are, and that's I think that we all know that that's key to being healthy and key to kind of being motivated throughout the day as well. But many people in the audience and many financial service people who work in financial services, let's not lie, spend a lot of their day sitting. I know that a lot of people have standing desks and all that kind of stuff nowadays, but even that, I mean, it's not active, and the result of that obviously is that we can put on weight, we can get less healthy, we can, all sorts of different kind of negative health result. I'm asking this question terribly. Basically, what I'm trying to get from you is for those people who do kind of struggle to get active and spend most of their day sitting, what would you say are some quick wins and little habits that can make them more active, let's just say from tomorrow?
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, you have to look at, well, okay, we have a sedentary job. That's not going to change. So ultimately, let's look at what's the solution to be active. I have a sedentary job. I'm wired to a laptop. My screen time daily is over 11 hours on average. But at the end of the day, it's, well, what are some simple strategies I can put in place? Now, let's say you don't even want to go to the gym. Let's rule that out for now. The most simple, impactful thing that you can do is something I call the 3x15 method. All this is 3 15-minute walks per day. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes on your lunch break, and 15 minutes in the evening. That's 45 minutes of walking per day. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 22 and a half hours of walking in a month. That's considerable. So if you're looking at a really time-packed, I'm stressed out, day's busy, I've got kids to look after in the evening as well. Well, how can you build in 15 minutes? You can get up 15 minutes earlier. Everyone can. I don't care who you are. You can get up 15 minutes earlier if that's a real challenge. Go walk before your work's even started. Secondary to that, you're going to have a break at some point throughout the day. There's going to be a 15-minute gap in between calls, in between meetings, at lunch, whatever. Be productive. And then again in the evening, if you've got a dog, you've got kids, try and get outside, find ways to spend time with your family and build that activity into your lifestyle. If you're sitting watching 30 minutes or 60 minutes, maybe even more of a TV show in the evening, you've got time to go 15 minutes of a walk. So again, it's just about, well, what's realistic? What's something I can fit in? And to me, that's the lowest barrier to entry for any human being, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it into those, it is kind of like those little habit things, isn't it? When you compound things, 15 minutes, it might not seem like much, but then, like you said, if you build that up over a month, even if you could extend it to 20 minutes, the compound effect of that would be enormous.
I literally, I have a route, but this is what I tell our clients: is I say, walk out the door 7.5 minutes and walk back. Like, don't overcomplicate. Literally set a timer and walk back. Ultimately, finding those little pockets is to what, in my experience, is most realistic for most people. So 7.5, 5 minutes, go walk, come back. Like, they add up. You do that. Even I've given an example of 3. What if you could get 4? As you said, what if you could extend it to 20 minutes? Most people can't. So then you really start to compound over a period of time. Most people dishearten because they can't go to the gym or they can't do that. You don't need to move mountains. You just need consistency. That's all it comes down to.
Absolutely. And one of the kind of things that a lot of people struggle with as well is the kind of balance between exercise and diet when trying to become healthier. I'm intrigued from your perspective, because I know that you do a lot of work around this. Like, what is that balance between exercise and diet when you're trying to become healthier?
You often hear, it's 70% diet, 30% training, this sort of thing when it comes to results. I don't hugely buy into that. I mean, you're a human being. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you're going to have to eat well, you're going to have to exercise, you're going to have to be active, you're going to have to sleep well. There's a multitude of factors at play here. There is one caveat, though. You can't out-train a bad diet. Let me give you an example. I could scoff down 3 Krispy Kreme donuts in less than 90 seconds if I really wanted to. All jokes aside, I genuinely could, and that's 1,500 calories, roughly, give or take. It would take me 4 hours on a treadmill to burn that off. It would be almost an impossible task. So you have to look at it from that lens. Okay, you can be active, you can be doing the right things, but if your nutrition is really poor and you're not paying any attention to serving sizes or quantities, or you're eating maybe highly palatable, highly processed foods that have a lot of calories in them without you maybe even knowing, then it can be really difficult to get weight off and keep it off. So I believe there has to be an element of consciousness around every aspect: nutrition, training, activity, sleep, stress, all of these things. But again, it is very difficult to out-train a poor nutrition approach. So the foundation of a good, healthy human being is, nutrition and an activity. If you're going to be eating anyway, in some capacity, every human being eats. So you might as well try and set it up to something you can enjoy and something that is ultimately going to drive results as well. So nutrition is usually the first thing we look at, and it maybe is arguably the highest of importance, but I don't say that to discount the importance of the other parts.
Yeah, I love what you said there. You can't out-train a bad diet. It's so true. I mean, a lot of us are kind of secret eaters as well. I think a lot of people they think they might not they still feel hungry at the end of the day, and they might not think they've consumed that much food.
There's quite a considerable number of studies done on human tracking food and things like that, and using maybe tools like MyFitnessPal. Most people on average are anywhere from 50 to 100% off on their daily targets. that's the average. So there's worse. There is better, of course. Now, these can come from things that you don't even realize. Hidden calories, let's say you look at a coffee, a cappuccino or a latte, you have 3 or 4 cappuccinos a day, 800 calories, depending on what type of milk's in it. You're maybe picking at the kids' dinner, you're having a handful of maybe some dried fruits or nuts you think are okay. It's 1,500 calories before you've even batted an eyelid. So it's not often even anyone's fault. It's maybe just a lack of understanding or lack of rigidity around the tracking, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And one of the things that you mentioned before that you start with nutrition when you're kind of taking people through this, and one of your programs is called the Fat Loss Forever program, which is lovely. Program. Yeah, lovely use of alliteration kind of in there. And there are, you talk about there's kind of 3 proven methods in this. Can you just quickly just summarize them and take us through them so that maybe people in the audience have an idea of what that actually entails?
Yeah. So the first one is something we call metabolic activation training. All this means is really short, sharp training periods. So I'm talking specifically around resistance training here. So the use of weights or machines or even your body weight for resistance here. This is, again, the most time-tested, efficient, effective way if you want to lose fat, build muscle, and ultimately be a lean, athletic, healthy human being. Whether you're male, whether you're female, this is completely irrelevant. Ultimately, the most effective and efficient way is to train with resistance. So we created a method of training. Again, it's out there. I'm not claiming to have created anything from scratch here. It's just simply a way we package it. But essentially, we look at what's realistic for a busy professional, let's say. How can we make a workout plan as efficient, as effective as possible for 40 to 45 minutes max? So we use things like shorter rest periods or something we call rest, or something that is called rest pause, to get a lot done in a short space of time. If you look at the data, you get the same effect, but in a shorter time period. So again, we kind of start with the people we work with in mind. Time poor, 9 to 5 hours. We don't have 2 hours in the gym. I don't have 2 hours in the gym. So how can we be as effective in a 30 to 40 minute window as somebody else is in a 90 minute to 2 hour window? Maybe not as effective, but at least 90% of the way there. So that's kind of step number one. The second part is something called flexible nutrition. We talked about this just before we come on. We were talking about Rohan, who's a client of mine. I'm sure maybe the listeners know who that is or have an understanding. But you mentioned he was having things that maybe didn't feel like he was off track, or he was on a restrictive approach. He was maybe having something on the train, a chocolate bar or something. I'm not sure what it was, but really flexible nutrition is the process in which you look at nutrition through a numbers lens. So let's say your goal is 2,000 calories per day and you want to consume 200 grams of protein. Well, we know that you have to consume quote unquote healthy foods. But if you actually look at the information, you can fit in certain things like chocolate or sweets or whatever foods you genuinely enjoy and still make progress in terms of fat loss, in terms of body composition, as long as 2 things are equated. And those are calories and those are protein. So flexible nutrition for us is about creating a plan or a process that someone genuinely enjoys, they genuinely can stick to, but is kind of centered around those targets in terms of calories and protein. So we can fit things in like pizza on the weekend or chocolate during the week. I spoke to yourself, Dan, if you said I'm Florida right now. Every day I love ice cream. It's 35 degrees out there. I want some ice cream. So flexible nutrition is me realizing that I want some ice cream, making some adjustments to my plan the rest of the day to fit the ice cream in. It's not going to throw me off track. It's not going to magically cause me to store fat. It's just an understanding that I need to hit or work towards certain targets during the day. And as long as I hit, those numbers, I'm good to go and I can fit some certain things in. So that's kind of the flexible nutrition portion. The third is sort of bulletproof routines. This really comes down to automating the process as much as possible. We are creatures of habit. But something like, I'm sure it was in actually James Clear's book that we discussed before we come on, 80 to 90% of our day is run on autopilot. So we look at, well, what are the 3 to 5 maybe bulletproof routines that we need to set up in order for you to be successful? And we have maybe a list of 10 to 15 of these that we will pick out per client as most applicable. One would maybe be the 3x15 method. The second could be something that we call maybe the 60-minute nighttime de-stress, which is just a little framework we put our clients through at the end of the night to make sure they're winding down, getting a good quality sleep, maybe taking supplementation to help improve quality of sleep. If that's maybe an issue, or if stress is an issue, tiredness, fatigue, all these sorts of things. So it's generally picking from, let's say, 10 to 12 frameworks and implementing 3 to 5 of those with a specific client. So there's sort of kind of 3 pillars to that. And then just holding people to account. That's not really part of those pillars, but just accountability. Like, what's the plan? Here it is. Let's make it happen. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people go to their personal trainers and stuff for, isn't it? It's that accountability piece. And
I have a fitness coach.
Yeah.
Most people are surprised by that, but at the end of the day, the best athletes, the best sports people, the best entrepreneurs in the world have coaches. If you want to be really good at something, accountability helps. It doesn't matter how good you are at something. Accountability, going to the next level, everyone needs a little push time.
Absolutely does. I mean, you mentioned it beautifully there, which brings us on to the next question nicely, which is about habits. And, I didn't realize actually we are 89% of our days, 80 to 90% of our days. I know.
I'm not sure exact figures, but it's not far away.
Yeah. I mean, we can just say it's a lot of our time is spent on autopilot. What do you do? Like, what do you kind of recommend people on how to create those healthy habits? Like, is it? I mean, you mentioned there about going for walks and stuff like that, but what else when it comes to the nutrition side, especially? How do we create those healthy habits to stop us from getting into those kind of bad habits as well?
Well, again, it's looking at and problem solving what's causing the bad habits in the first place. So let's say you've got a bad habit of after not eating during the day. This is really common. I get this quite a lot. You don't eat during the day, maybe snacking some biscuits at work. You finish up work at 6 p.m. You're exhausted, tired. First thing that you see is getting eaten, and then it's a sort of gorging fest from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., whatever you can get up, because you've got this lag. You're starving from the day. So that could be a potentially really bad habit. Well, what's the solution? We have to start with the solution. Well, okay, you're not eating during the day. Why? Well, there's just nothing around. I'm not prepared. Well, let's look at that. You're not prepared. Why are you not prepared? Well, I don't really know what to eat during the day. I don't know what it should be. No problem. Let's put a plan in place. So then you're just sort of working backwards from the bad habit. It's like, well, the bad habit's nutrition in the evening. Why is it happening? Here's the source of the problem. Well, what's the next step? The next step is a solution. So let's look at, on a Saturday or a Sunday, when's best for you? When do you need to go to Tesco, Sainsbury's, whatever? Do a food shop, maybe grab half a dozen healthy snacks, one for in the morning, Monday through Friday, one for the afternoon, Monday through Friday. And let's maybe prepare a lunch for you in advance, or at least maybe have the ingredients ready so you can prepare it the night before, the morning of, whatever. I would always suggest trying to prep something in advance, because then it automates the process. But then you've just eliminated your worst habit around nutrition, simply because you've done a bit of proactive planning and thinking. So for nutrition, the biggest thing that I would recommend to anyone, and we've worked with hundreds of people, and it all boils down to who can prepare and plan the most. Our most successful students are those who at least take the steps to try and prepare for their week. They know they're going to have a busy week, so they prep up maybe some lunches, pasta dish, rice, whatever. Maybe if you don't like that, fine. Maybe you at least have a plan in mind of what you're going to get, and you grab it the night before, or you prepare it in advance, whatever. They know they're going to be relatively hungry between breakfast and lunch, and between lunch and going home. So what do we put in there? Well, we grab some healthy snacks. Maybe it's some Greek yogurt and fruit in the morning, or a protein bar in the afternoon. Again, it's conscious planning, it's preparation. It's, well, if I have all of this on a Sunday, good to go. I've got my lunch there. I've got my 2 mid-morning and afternoon snacks. I've just automated 60 to 70% of the nutrition choices I need to make for the week. I then actively have to choose to waste food and go off of the plan I've already set myself up for. You're going to have an evening meal. It's most likely going to be a family meal. Most people get that right. Meat, veg, standard pasta dish, whatever. Most people can get that not too bad. And breakfast is relatively easy. Nobody's choking down a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream at 7 a.m. Well, I'm sure they are somewhere, but it's least likely to happen, and that's where your willpower is strongest. So if you don't like breakfast, keep moving. If you do, perfect. You can prep something up in 5-10 minutes, you're good to go. So by simply preparing ahead of time, you've just automated 70% of your choices around nutrition and removed probably the biggest bottleneck for most in terms of getting fit, getting healthy, or losing weight, because then you're prepared. So that to me is step one. Step two would be building in more activity, the 3x15, as I mentioned. And thirdly to that, it really comes down to what you're putting on your calendar. 90% of people, including myself, if you're in this profession, I imagine, would work off their calendar. You've got meetings, you've got appointments, you've got places to be. Put the things that are important to you, your health, your family, and your calendar first. When are you going to try and fit in a workout? Is it in the morning? Is it going to be before the day starts? Write it down. Conscious planning. If you bring conscious attention to it, the likelihood of you actually doing it is 10x. And that's not me just saying numbers. There's a Harvard study done in 1985. They looked at those who put a plan and a goal in place, and their success was 10 times of that of those who didn't. Literally 10x. And this was years later, and they judged it on finances. So something relatively important. Those who put a plan and goal in place for themselves financially made 10 times on average more money 30 or 20 years later. So again, it really comes down to planning and goal setting for me, and conscious forward thinking. That was maybe a long-winded answer, but did I leave any?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I think one of the things I was thinking while you were talking there is this: you mentioned it perfectly there about putting things in your calendar that are really important to you. And I think that's one of the problems with this, is that habits are they're developed from values. So the stuff that we really value, we will habitualize them things. So for instance, if we really value going to the pub on a Friday night with our friends and enjoying ourselves, that kind of becomes a habit because we value it. So I think a lot of the problems here is, for you, for instance, I know that you really value being healthy and having maybe a good posture and good kind of healthy lifestyle. Whereas for some people, they perhaps not yet, they might in the future, they don't value it, and therefore they don't habitualize it. And it's kind of breaking out of that system and realizing eventually that you almost have to value this, because you've got no choice. You either become healthy or you don't. And, we all know the kind of negative impacts of that as well.
100%. I think the biggest portion of where most people get stuck with this is there's not a human being in the face of the planet. There maybe is, but for anyone who's sane, let's say, who doesn't want to be fitter, healthier, leaner, live a longer life? Like, everyone wants to do it. You have to ask, well, what's the bottleneck? The bottleneck most of the time is the perceived effort and what it takes to get there. Yeah. And then it's maybe prioritization of other things. We all get busy in work and life and family and all these sorts of things. But what I truly believe that everyone out there can create a process they enjoy, they can stick to, drives results, and works for everything. We've had the single dads of 4 who work the highest level executive jobs in the US, fit time in for themselves every single day. That's just one example. There are dozens and dozens of people who are exceptionally busy, thousands of things going on in life, but they find 30 minutes for themselves each day. It comes down to priorities. And it's not my job to scare anyone into it, but when you look at what kills people, it's heart attacks, it's being overweight, and it's such a shame, because there are such simple fixes to this. That can be implemented in anyone's day-to-day life to at least get them moving in the right direction. I think that's where most people get stuck. They perceive it to be this starvation diet, this thing that's going to be an absolute nightmare. They need to go to the gym for 2 hours a day. That's where I feel most people get stuck, when you could go walk for a few times each day and, maybe cut some rubbish back in the weekend, and you get most of the way there, So I think it just a lot of times comes down to clarity around what's actually required, and building enjoyment in from the start. I value what I do, yes, without a doubt, in terms of health, but I really enjoy it. I'm not just paying lip service to that. I genuinely enjoy what I do in terms of going to the gym. And if there's ever a day that I stop enjoying it, I'll find something else. Find something else to do that keeps me active. So it really comes down to enjoyment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with you. And again, that kind of brings us nicely into the next, you mentioned in there about seeing all these kind of diets and workout schedules and all that kind of stuff online. There's loads of jargon on social media platforms. TikTok is the worst for it. I don't know if you've been on TikTok and seen some of the terrible advice that's things on there. And we hear all sorts of different things from all sorts of different angles. You're telling us something now, which I would imagine is probably true and kind of reasonable and everything like that. But the thing is that there's probably a PT on TikTok who would completely disagree with everything that you're saying and recommend completely different ways to lose weight and get fit. Now, there's a beauty in that, is that it's kind of, that proves that it's a dynamic world and that we can do different things in different ways. But apart from yourself, obviously, who should we listen to when it comes to this kind of stuff? Because there's so much crap out there. Who do you think that we should listen to?
Yeah, I'll start by telling you who you shouldn't listen to. This will genuinely narrow it down. If someone is telling you must do something, they are most likely trying to sell you something. Now, I'm trying to sell you something, of course. Listen, that's what I'm in the business of doing. But if someone is wholeheartedly saying this is the only way, that is completely false, and they should probably be avoided. If you look at the actual research data and multitude of studies on weight loss, health, etc., there are a few factors at play. The biggest one of them all is how long can you be consistent? Now, that again opens another can of worms, because there's a million different ways you can be consistent. You'll hear of things like keto diet, vegan diet, carnivore diet, low fat, low carb. You can get results with every single one of them. That doesn't mean that it's the right one for you. The right approach for you and how you should really view things is, when I'm doing this, can I do this for years and decades of my life? Because if you want to be healthy, if you want to be fit, if you want to live a long, healthy life, you'll only get the benefits from a nutrition approach or a training approach if you can sustain it for decades. That's it. That's what the research has proven. Now, there are, talking financial industry here, there are a million ways you can make money. A million. Like, it's going to vary depending on whether you're 20, whether you're 65, you're going for retirement. Like, there's different ways to manage a portfolio. Like, there are so many. They're all right. They all have merit, but they may not be right for that individual. For example, you take a 70-year-old who's just retired. You're not going to give them an extremely high risk portfolio, because what happens is so the same way as a 20-year-old, they can afford more risk. So there's different ways to look at this. There's a million things you can do, but you need to try and find what works for you. And that may take kissing a few frogs, making a few mistakes, finding out things that don't work for you. That's absolutely fine. Everyone tries something and doesn't stick with it. It's about continuing to do that process until you do. So if someone, in terms of, sorry, to really bring it back into who you should listen to, you shouldn't listen to me either. Being transparent, like, okay, take what I'm doing with a pinch of salt. Look at maybe the research behind it, or try and get a second opinion on it, and give it a go for yourself. Just because I recommend something, it may not work for you. That's where we really try and meet with our clients on this. We will say, tell us what you like, tell us what you enjoy, tell us what your family environment's like, your professional environment's like, all of these different questions, because then we can start to create something that's in the ballpark for what they're going to like. So again, it really comes down to the individual. Yes, there are a million ways to get lean, fit, and healthy. It doesn't mean you should do a specific one. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it is brilliant. I think it was a nice way to start it as well, by saying who should we not listen to? Because I can think of.
Let me give you an example. Keto is a diet you've probably heard of. It's relatively popular right now, has been for the last couple of years. It involves basically eating a lot of fat and no carbs. That's essentially it in a nutshell. There are people who sell keto-related products. Bulletproof coffee is a popular one. It's actually quite popular in the entrepreneurial space as well. And the guy behind it loves keto, but that's all he does, and it's all he sells. And he treats it as his name's Dave Asprey. He treats it as if it's the only way you can get lean and healthy. It worked for him, but that's not necessarily to say it's going to work for someone else. For me, not a chance. There's no way I'm giving up carbs. There's no way I'm giving up ice cream and chocolate bars and all that sort of stuff. It's just no way that's happening. Like, but it could be a great diet for someone who, and there are people out there who absolutely love it. So again, if someone's really pigeonholing and saying this is the only way, look behind at what they're selling on their website. And if it's related to that, well, then you probably know that it's maybe something to be at least double checked. That's not to say it might not work for you.
Yeah.
A bit more.
I talk about this in the kind of marketing world as well. I mean, there's loads of people out there who would tell you that you're making a huge mistake, or that you need to do this, or that you're doing this wrong, or something like that. And I mean, I cringe when I see that kind of stuff. Firstly, because people, don't grow by being told that they're doing something wrong. We don't like being told that we're wrong. But also, I mean, how do we know that that's a mistake? It could be good for someone in their situation, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of links across nicely there as well. Something I do want to focus on is this kind of the outcome of this kind of stuff. So we all get told. I mean, I've been told loads of times that being healthy and not only mentally but also physically, it improves motivation, it improves productiveness throughout the day and all that kind of stuff. How do you what's your view on that? What do you think that is that actually makes us, how do you think that having a healthy mind and body actually affects us in our professional lives?
I think it's obviously comes from fitness coach here, but I think health and fitness is the foundation for everything, literally everything. Like there is not it is the one thing in the world. There is not a downside to it. Period. You can't show me a downside to being healthier, fitter, and having more energy, being happier on a daily basis. So it ultimately comes down to, again, I've seen hundreds of people transform their lives, and very rarely does anyone ever talk about how they look once it's done. Okay, that's obviously a part, but it's more how they feel, how productive they are, how much energy they have to play with their kids at the end of the day, how much more productive they are in the morning, how they feel when they get out of bed, how much more work they're getting done, how more alive they feel. That's a lot of the things that I get in terms of feedback. If you get to a point where you're in a healthy body fat range, you've built maybe some and maintained some lean muscle mass. I think that's really key to longevity now. I don't think I know. That's the studies. But if you get to a point where you can maintain a lean, athletic, healthy physique, every element or aspect of your life should, in theory, be improved by it. You've got more energy. Again, it's linked to things like depression, mental health, improving all of those markers. So you should be happier, healthier, more energy. You're going to live a longer time. You're going to feel better on a day-to-day basis. More clarity, less brain fog. So the results, to me, honestly, it's like I have been unfit and unhealthy in my life. And I wish I could give everyone the opportunity to feel like how I do on a daily basis now. And that's not to come across as arrogant or big-headed. It's purely just because I've built a habits over a set period of time that have allowed me to get here. But people who struggle to get out of bed, who are exhausted after a day's work, who are getting out of breath walking up a set of stairs, that's common, but it's not normal. I wish everyone could experience being fit, healthy, feeling great, having a great energy for 24 hours, because everyone would be so much more motivated to do it. And I've seen that from hundreds and hundreds of transformations, how people feel just on a day-to-day basis. That's ultimately what people want. It's just to feel good and really live a long, high quality life. That's ultimately the goal for me. There's not a marker in your life that won't be improved by achieving that, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think it's true as well. I do. I think everyone would probably agree. I mean, maybe not after an exercise. I mean, this brings us on to a nice question, a next question nicely, because, I was going to ask about kind of a lot. I know that a lot of people kind of find exercise quite soothing, and
Yep.
they do it to kind of, it's almost like a meditation. They, it clears their head, it can alleviate stress, all that kind of stuff. Now, for some people, that works fantastically well, and some people it doesn't. So, before client meetings, I mean, should we all just be going for runs before them, or is there different ways that we can kind of clear our heads and alleviate stress before we go into those high pressure situations, for instance?
Again, it comes down to yourself as a human being. What do you feel good doing? One thing that I will do every morning is have a freezing cold shower when I get up. It's a really, really tough part of the day, but once you've done it, I feel incredible. My energy levels really highly spike. Again, when it comes down to exercise and stress relief and things like that, there are a multitude of ways you can do it. Meditation is a route you can go. I don't have much success with it personally. There are, again, loads of studies showing that going a walk in nature has a huge impact. And just building in some overall activity, as you said. We were made as human beings to move, run, hunt, all of these different things. It's only in the last 100 years, even less, we've become sedentary. So there's probably a reason that's tied to feeling great, stress relief. But again, I'm maybe not the best person to consult on getting stress relief. But yeah, without a doubt, exercise, just moving, building something into your daily routine and meeting yourself where you're at is key with this. Obviously, you mentioned there just a couple of minutes ago that maybe not after an exercise session doesn't feel great. Well, again, that comes down to meeting you where you're at. If you haven't trained or worked out in 3 years, 5 years, there's no point in getting in and doing a 2-hour gym session. Go and start with a walk. Build yourself up. That's how, again, a lot of people get turned away or lose motivation. It's too tough. It's too hard. It's, a nightmare to start. Slow and steady wins the race. That's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree, and this is a huge question for us to finish off with. Well, kind of finish off with. I always like to save the big questions for last. But we've been talking a lot today about habits, and you mentioned before about you're trying to kind of get this across to as many people as you can about the benefits of being healthy and all that kind of stuff. But if, let's just say, everyone in society had maybe not 100% healthier habits, maybe just 50% healthier habits throughout their daily lives, what do you think that society would look like as a result of that? It's a big question, isn't it?
It's a big question. I mean, there's not a doubt in my mind that everyone would be wealthier, happier. Mental health would probably be less of a problem. We'd be living longer, high quality lives. For example, in the UK, the biggest stress in the NHS is people who are overweight. So again, looking at the economy in itself, that would be vastly improved by people being healthier and happier. But ultimately, the biggest improvement to me would be on people's day-to-day lives, attitudes, levels of motivation, just how they feel. So if you take the population and think about, as I said, implementing 100%. Well, what's the byproduct? They're going to be healthier, they're going to be happier, they're going to live longer, they're going to have more energy, they're going to be more productive, more motivated. What doesn't get improved with that? Nothing. There's nothing in the economy or in the greater grand scheme that would not be improved as a direct result of everyone being healthier. You would have more innovation, you would have less cost to the NHS and the government and all these things. So to me, how society would look, I have no idea. but I know it would be a much better place to live, is my guess.
I think we've just found the key to making the world better, making the world a better place. Actually, I think we've just kind of discovered it. I mean, we talked about this.
I don't know if there's anything out there, one metric that you could give everyone more money. That's probably the second biggest thing, but I don't know how many problems that would solve. It would solve plenty. But if you solve health for everyone or help them to become healthier, everything else should improve. as a
Yeah, I
byproduct.
mean, healthy and happy are kind of described as like synonymous, like they're almost like you can't have one without the other. And there's a reason behind that kind of phrase is because, I mean, the two are linked, and the aim of society is to all like really to be happier. And you know, if we can find something that actually makes us be happier, why would we not do it? So it's all about kind of eradicating those bad habits and creating healthier habits. I think is something that came out of this.
A really good saying. If a healthy man has all the choices in the world, an unhealthy man has one. To get healthy.
Yeah,
so
true.
if you put yourself in a position to be healthy, fit, and happy for a long time, you give yourself all the opportunity in the world.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, we always like to ask our guests for a book or something like a piece of content or I don't know, a film or even could be an album or something like that has helped them in their career and kind of really try to, you know, motivate them and clear their head. What would you say has really had an impact on you?
One of the kind of first books I read and sort of when I started getting into self-development or looking at improving myself was by two Navy SEALs. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. The audiobook is incredible. You can listen to it at 1.5, 2x speed, have it done in a few hours. But it fundamentally shifted my mindset to life and everything I do. Extreme ownership of everything. Everything is my fault. And when you embrace that, honestly, since doing that, my life has drastically improved in every single element or aspect. Health, wealth, relationships, everything. Every corner of me as a human being has changed since. I would highly advise reading that book or listening to it. The audiobook's a great listen. There's really hard Navy SEALs in it. But it's a good read, especially if you're a type A personality.
Yeah.
That honestly, that book really did change the course of my life.
That's amazing. I mean, that's kind of the most glowing recommendation for a book that we've ever had on this podcast, I would imagine. So you've inspired me. I'm definitely going to go and download that afterwards and give it a listen.
Audible's £8 a month. I think the book, you get a token, it's £6. I have not spent about £6 in my life.
Apart from a Big Mac meal at McDonald's, maybe.
I mean, you probably can't even get that for £6 anymore.
True that, yeah. Let's not talk about the cost of living crisis on today's podcast because I don't think we'll be here for another 3 hours, wouldn't we? Well, thank you so much, Andrew. It's been a pleasure having you on today, mate. We like to give the last word to the fantastic guests who are coming on the show to say a big thank you for coming on. So, can you tell our audience where to find you, how to connect with you, and stuff like that?
Of course, if anyone wants to connect with me, best place to do it is LinkedIn. It'll just be Andrew Marsham. Also, I do have a YouTube channel, and we are putting a lot of time, effort, and energy into it moving forward. That's not really been a focus over the last couple of years, but is a major focal point now for our business. So, LinkedIn, if you want to talk to me, YouTube, if you want to go and get the best education that I put out.
Fantastic. There we go. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, mate. Thank you for spending time with us when you're supposed to be on holiday as well. So we're going to let you go and enjoy your time in the States. But it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. So that was Andrew Marsham from Andrew Marsham Fitness. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and it is now on YouTube as well. So you can recommend it to all your friends if you think they might enjoy it. And we are on all the social media channels, and you can find us on nextgenplanners.co.uk. We'll find more information about the community, which has now over 750 amazing financial service heroes in there, and about our training contract, the Advice Stack program, and of course our global speaker and influencer program, which has just passed this year, but will be opening applications for next year's one coming up very soon. And you can get the chance to become a global speaker in front of a global audience. And if you could leave us a review, we'd be really, really appreciative of that. We never really used to ask for these, but until we realized how important they are. So if you could give us a review, that would be amazing. We really, really do appreciate it. But again, thank you so much to Andrew for joining us on the show today. Thank you guys for listening as always, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.